everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Lauren and today is going to be a little bit more of a kind of sadder video. I might not seem super sad in this video because it has been a few months since this happened. I've had a lot of time to process. My husband and I have had a lot of time, and now we just feel so much peace, and we are just thankful that this has brought us even closer to each other and closer to God, and just all of the goodness that we are trying to see from a sad situation. So I just wanted to tell my story of when I had a miscarriage. I had a miscarriage 2 months ago. It's still obviously kind of new, but like I said, just haven't really had time to process. So I'm just gonna say how I found out I'm pregnant, how I found out miscarrying, and all those things, and things that I learned along the way that I didn't realize. And maybe this can help some women out there going through this currently, or maybe you'll go through this in the future, which I hope you don't, but it is extremely common. I don't know if extremely would be the right word, but my doctor did say that about 30% of women nowadays will have at least one miscarriage in their lifetime. So it's a little bit more common than I thought, and I'm just gonna share my experience. So I found out that I was pregnant the day after Christmas in 2022, and I can share I'll probably share how I found out I was pregnant. I still think those moments are so special, and telling my husband I'm pregnant and telling our family. So I just wanted to share that with you guys now. 1, 2, 3. Wait. I'm so scared. Oh my gosh. Wait, I have to go get another test. I think I'm pregnant. And the digital one. What? That is so weird seeing that word.
Hey, will you relax? Shut up. Shut up, are you?
I'm so scared. Excited. I had to be here 4 days to tell you because you have to go to work.
So I was completely shocked. We weren't really trying, but it was the first time that we weren't preventing. So I had a feeling I was probably ovulating. I tracked my cycle. It's worked for me for 3 years, and it still works now. And I thought, okay, I am probably ovulating, but a lot of my friends in my life have been trying to get pregnant for so long, and you know, what's one time of like not preventing and knowing that I'm ovulating? Like, it probably won't happen. And even if it did, we knew we're, you know, prepared, we're married, we've got a house, we have enough room for a baby, and I wasn't, you know, too worried, but I was like, there's no way it's gonna happen. And so it did end up happening. I got pregnant, and I got pregnant in November, and then found out in December, the day after Christmas. So I was about 5 weeks already, which maybe is kind of later. Some people find out at 3 or 4 weeks. So I was a little over 5 weeks. So I found out. We were super excited. I was super shocked, and I couldn't tell Josh until he came home. And of course, he wasn't gonna be home for another 2 days. I had to keep it inside for about 2 or 3 days because he was at the fire station, and he was like, oh, I want to pick up another shift. And this was the like moment that I found out, and I had to text him and be like, okay, sure, babe. Like, in the back of my head, I'm like, dang it, you shouldn't have picked up another shift, because I want to tell you like tomorrow. And I didn't want to tell him over the phone. So anyways, I told Josh, and I will show my husband's reaction here. So needless to say, we were very emotional and so excited in the best way. Obviously, you start to get a little bit like nervous about what could happen to the baby or the body changes that you're gonna go through. And so I was feeling all of that, but we're very excited. So I called an OB because I don't currently have one. And so we made sure our insurance is covered by this OB, and we got an appointment on January 17th. I was so excited to go in, but obviously you're still really nervous. We did tell close friends and close family at when I was about 6 and 7 weeks pregnant. We did tell our close friends and family, and then on January 17th, I was supposed to be 8 weeks pregnant, a little bit like 8 weeks and a few days pregnant. So I was super excited to see the baby, but obviously nervous. So we went in for ultrasound, and you do have to do a vaginal ultrasound, which not a lot of women talk about, I feel like, because you just think about doing an ultrasound on your stomach, and nobody really talks about like when you're that early in your pregnancy, you're most likely gonna have to do one inside of you. So it was definitely uncomfortable, not painful, but it just, you know, it's just a foreign object like inside of you for a while, because the ultrasound tech came into the ultrasound and she was silent for a long time. My husband could see the screen, but I couldn't, and she did see the embryo and the baby. You know, she did see the baby and the placenta in there, but it was small, so she was pretty quiet. And unfortunately they don't tell you a lot until you see your actual doctor. So she's like, okay, is there any way that you could have been 6 weeks instead of 8 weeks? And I was like, I'm not sure. So then I'm just like so confused and then getting really emotional. So she left the room. I had to change, and then we had like a whole hour and a half before our next appointment. So we went and got coffee, and I was kind of crying and really emotional because I had a feeling that this was not going to end well, even though I had done a lot of research, and some women do go in for their 8-week appointment and they're only 6 or 7 weeks. But the fact that it was so small at 6 weeks was nerve-wracking. So then our doctor did come in. We finally met with her about an hour and a half later. So she did say it is possible, since my periods are very irregular, that I could be 6 weeks and it could be fine, or it could not be fine, and it could be that the baby stopped growing. So I like that she was honest with me, but also very optimistic, because other women have had experiences on like the online forums that I was looking at and reading. A lot of them had said they had the same thing happen. Don't worry too much about it. Most likely you ovulated late and maybe you are 6 weeks. So we decided to go in. Our doctor suggested that we wait 1 week, and if there's no growth, then we move forward with miscarriage. So I will say that I had all of the pregnancy symptoms. I think my body still thought I was pregnant, so it's what's called a missed miscarriage. Your body still thinks that you're pregnant. I still had some symptoms, but I never felt super nauseous, which wasn't a huge red flag to me, because my mom never got morning sickness, and they say it can be genetic. So I just felt very off. I was out of breath. I was way more tired than usual. I was having weird cravings. What else? Oh, my sleep was messed up and I couldn't stop peeing. So at least I had those thoughts in my head, like, okay, I still have these symptoms, but what now? So we went in the week after, and you know, unfortunately we did an ultrasound again. This time he did, it was a guy this time, and he did it on my stomach, because by then I should have been 9 weeks. And when you do it on your stomach on an ultrasound at 9 weeks, you can see pretty clearly that you're 9 weeks. So he did it on my stomach, and he said, you're measuring 6 weeks. And Josh and I just like tried to keep it together. The ultrasound tech left the room, and I was just like crying and sobbing. And now I realize, now I know why a lot of women think like, oh my gosh, like this is my fault, because you start to blame yourself so easily. Before I was like, how could you blame yourself? Like, do not do that. And now I'm realizing, like, being in this position, like obviously that is where your brain goes, because you think there's no other reason why except for something that I did. So that's what you start to think. But thankfully our doctor came in after that, and she did tell us, you know, with the looks of it, there's blood behind the placenta. There is showing other signs that this is probably a chromosome issue pregnancy, or sometimes they call it like a chemical pregnancy. But basically my body knew that this was kind of a bad embryo, not a great situation. So most likely that means that she's pretty sure that this baby did have some chromosomal issues, and your body kind of recognizes that, and the baby will stop growing. The thing about this is that a lot of women, I think, like myself, I thought that mainly if you have a miscarriage, then it's gonna happen on its own, and all of a sudden you'll be bleeding, and all of a sudden you'll have the miscarriage at home, or be doing something and realize like, okay, something's going on. But for me, nothing, there were no signs, there was nothing that was going wrong until I had an ultrasound. So that's the kind of thing that threw me off a little bit. So if you're in that situation, know that you're not alone. And she started telling me about the next steps of what we could do. So when it comes to a missed miscarriage, you can keep continuing to wait to see if your body will let it go on its own. The only thing is, the longer you wait, the more risk of possible infection or the risk of other things can go up. Obviously, I would rather do a more natural route if you know me, but by this time it had already been 3 weeks and my body still had not recognized that it needed to get rid of the tissue and placenta. So that was a hard part to come to terms with, and I was like, I just want to kind of help this process along and do what I can, so we can, you know, so I can get my body back on track, so I can get a normal period, and so that we can try again for a baby. So that's what I decided to do. So there's two options. You can take a medication, or you can do surgery right away. So the only thing with doing a medication route, which is what I did, is that you do have a small percent, I think it's like 10% of women still will need the surgery, which is called a DNC. So I was just so nervous and overwhelmed for having a surgery, and you have to be put under, and they go in and they scrape everything out, and there are risks with that. Even though my doctor has performed thousands of these, she has to tell me the risks, and those could be puncturing my uterus and puncturing a hole in it, puncturing my liver or bladder, and there's a risk for that because they really are going in blindly and doing the surgery because there's no way to really see, you know, a camera in there while they're doing it. So that was the risk, and I just wanted to not do a surgery, and I prayed and prayed that the medication would work and I wouldn't need a surgery. And I'm here to say I'm so thankful that I did not need the surgery. Either route that you end up going, it is hard either way. So I feel for you if you're going through this, or if you have to do both, and I am just feeling for you and praying for you moms and soon-to-be moms out there that have gone through this. I don't know, I'm glad that I can talk about this without getting emotional and crying, because I just really wanted to just like have a chat with you guys and just share my experience, and it's still a little bit emotional, but I'm getting through it. So then I took the medication. I did a lot of research on this as well, so hopefully this video is helpful to you guys, because I looked up a ton of videos on Misoprostol, I believe is how you pronounce it. So the way it works is I had to go in office on that Friday, so I got the news about my baby for sure not growing anymore on a Monday, and then we waited until that Friday. So I was off work, so my husband was off work so he could help me, because I knew it was probably going to be painful, so I wanted him to be there emotionally and physically for me. So we decided to do it on that Friday, or actually on that Thursday. So I took the medication. You have to take the first pill in office so they can see you take it, which is kind of interesting, but you take the medication, and that first day you're not going to feel any symptoms. It's really just preparing your body for the next day where you take the other medication, the Misoprostol. And yes, so a day goes by after taking that first pill. Didn't feel anything. I was just kind of relaxing. My husband and I went out for dinner just to try to get our mind off things, because I knew the next few days I was going to be having to stay at home like all day because of just the kind of pain that I would probably be going through. So what it does, it kind of just starts your body into a very intense period, and also into very mild contractions because it's contracting everything out of you, hopefully. The issue with the medication sometimes is that your body doesn't contract everything out, and if there is still tissue left over, then they will have to go in and do the surgery and get everything out. So I was hoping and praying that everything would come out like I said. So I took the second medication that next day, and you leave it in your mouth and let it dissolve over the course of 30 minutes. And almost immediately at that 30-minute mark, I got this really intense contraction cramp feeling. I don't get very bad period cramps, so for me that's what made me even more nervous. It's nothing that you can't handle though. Same thing with birth, you can handle it, you are meant to do this. It just was a little bit more nerve-wracking than anything because I didn't know what to expect, and I knew it was going to be a lot of blood as well. So that intense cramping happened for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then kind of the whole day I didn't really feel anything. So that made me a bit nervous. They say by about hour 6, I believe, or less than that, maybe like by hour 4 or 5, you should start feeling the intense cramps and start bleeding. So I was waiting for the bleeding. I had my pads, I had a heating pad, I had a normal pad to go in my underwear. I had things that I could sit on in case it leaked out or anything, because it was going to be a lot of blood, way more than a period would be. So I was prepared for that, and the whole day I didn't bleed at all, except for those just those mild cramps that I had was the only sign. So I got a little bit nervous. I called my OB, and the midwife on call, she answered and she said, that typically is normal, but give us a call tomorrow after the 24-hour mark has passed. And if you haven't passed anything, then give us a call. We might have to have you in for the D&C for the next step. So then I started really getting nervous. I was like, please work, like hurry up. So the whole day goes by, I don't really feel anything and no bleeding. The next day, I would say this is hour like 28 hours since I had taken that most recent medication that you dissolve in your cheeks. So by then I could tell things were starting to ramp up because of the contraction feeling. That's how I can describe it, because I know period cramps are intense, and I had a lot of those throughout it, but then all of a sudden I got this wave of intense contraction where my body was like tight, like in that area. So I don't want to scare you guys, because it is something that you can handle, but just to be prepared and have somebody there with you if that's what you want. My husband being there for me and helping me, and I didn't want to stand up and get water. I didn't want to stand up and like get something to eat, and he was very helpful in that way, because I at sometimes couldn't really stand up, you know. So then I like had a really intense feeling. So I started actually timing them, which is really interesting, because some of my friends that have been on this medication for their miscarriage, they just described it as intense period cramps and that was it. But for me, I even timed it and it felt like the timing of a contraction. They were 3 minutes apart and about a minute long. So I at one point had to like, I don't want to scare you either. It was more comfortable for me to be on the ground with my hands like, this sounds intense, I'm sorry. But it just was more comfortable for me to be in like a cat and cow position that you do in yoga, with your hands on the ground and your knees on the ground, and just kind of swaying back and forth and having that really intense contraction for 60 seconds, and then it would go away for 3 minutes and it would come back. I would say I had about 5 of those. And then by then I started passing a lot of blood and a lot of tissue. And by then I think it continued that day, and then the next day I did pass a lot more tissue. The thing is, I couldn't really tell. The baby would have been about the size of a blueberry at that point, but I did see big pieces of tissue, which are probably the placenta and other things that are in your body when you're creating a baby. So I never saw or noticed the embryo or the baby, but some people do, especially if you're farther along, and if it is your choice to, you know, keep the embryo and the baby in the tissue, then you can do that. So I don't know, everything went down the toilet and I couldn't see it because it just kind of slides in the toilet, and I couldn't really see much, but I was bleeding a lot, which was great, like good progression. So after that, you have to wait 2 weeks because you continue to bleed for about 2 weeks, which was a little bit scary to me, but it does get lighter every day. And just imagine it as you're having a period and just mentally think about it in that way. I think that helped me. The thing is, you can't use any tampons. You do need to use like thick pads, so that was kind of the only downside. So after 2 weeks, I would say about a week and a half, I had stopped bleeding, and then we went in for my doctor's appointment at that 2-week mark because she wanted to see me right after 2 weeks. And they did an ultrasound, a vaginal ultrasound again, because they want to make sure all of the tissue is gone. And thankfully, she said it was all gone. And I am very thankful that they can also take a look at your ovaries and your uterus, and they took a long time kind of taking pictures of everything, and they said everything looks good. The thing with that is sometimes when you do have a miscarriage, they can see that there's a cyst on your ovaries, and maybe that's the reason why that you miscarried, or there's things that are a little bit off about you, and then they help you with that process, which is also a good thing, so you can get help in that way and try again for a baby. But I'm very thankful that she said everything looks good and my uterine lining looks great and back to normal. So now we are about 2 months, a little over 2 months after that, and we have had a lot of time to process, like I said, and I'm just wanting to share this experience with you guys if you're going through this as well. I know for me, I just didn't know what to expect, and I'm just so thankful that a lot of people have reached out to me and said that they experienced the same thing. And some of my friends, my heart goes out to them because they have had multiple miscarriages in between their children, but it just makes it a little bit better, or a little bit easier to deal with sometimes when you see other women or friends of yours talk about their experience. So I hope that this can help you as well. If you have any further questions about finding out I was pregnant or about the miscarriage, please message me on Instagram and I can try to get back to you, or comment down below on this YouTube video. And yes, I might get a question of when we're gonna try again, or if we're ready to try. I did just have a period, so the doctor did say she wants a full menstrual cycle for me to go through it, and then we can start trying again. So we might start trying in the next month or two, but we'll see. We're not in a rush. We're not gonna put pressure on us. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So please let me know if you've experienced this as well. I would love to hear your experience with a miscarriage, or taking the medication, or a DNC, because I feel like the more we talk about it, the more we can help other women who are going through it as well. So praying for you out there if you're going through this. God is so good, and he is not doing this to you. Don't be upset with God. I know it's hard because you're like, what have I done wrong? Why am I, why is this happening? And everything will happen for a reason. It's so cheesy. Everyone always says that. It might be the last thing that you want to hear, but it is just so true, and you are going to be stronger when you come out of this. And yeah, so I'll see you guys in my next video. Hopefully it's a little bit happier of one, but I hope this helped, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.